Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Goodwin of YourBostonSports.com. Good evening, everyone. I'm live on Facebook audio to obviously talk about the big news today, which I figured an announcement was due today, and I was right regarding John Farrell, one way or another. And John Farrell is no longer the manager of the Red Sox, as you know. Dave Dombrowski had his 11 a.m. press conference. And first, I want to wish John Farrell the best. I had the pleasure of meeting him at Red Sox Winter Weekend last winter, and I can tell you that he was gracious and friendly and really a very nice person to meet, a very high-profile person. And he was very nice and very down-to-earth. So I really do honestly wish him the best. And when you ask what happened here, a lot of people are pointing to the game they lost to Houston, leaving Chris Sale in the eighth inning rather than bringing in Addison Reed. I'm not sure it's that decision that really caused this whole thing to happen. If you go back into the season, and I think Korn and I had a show and talked about this, that the Manny Machado incident where he essentially spiked Dustin Pedroia and Pedroia was out for a bit. And then they were going to hit him. They weren't going to hit him. Barnes ended up hitting him with a pitch. And then you saw Dustin Pedroia motioning to Machado saying that wasn't my idea or wasn't me or something like that. That was a veteran player that, to me, didn't show support for his teammates, the coaching staff, John Farrell. In my opinion, and I'm not a baseball player, but in my opinion, the right thing to do would have been for Pedroia to say nothing. That would not have made it look like he was taking sides. But he chose not to do that. And I thought that was unfortunate. I thought that was a bad sign. And then the David Price, Dennis Eckersley situation, in itself, what we found out was bad enough. But this was all, obviously, this whole scenario that happened on the plane was leaked by someone. And I know I'm guessing it's hard to control 25 players and coaches also, but more the players. And I'm sure that you can't tell them, hey, remember what just happened? Don't say anything. I'm sure you can't say that. And I don't know if you can expect 25 people to come to the same conclusion that this is an inside situation that should not be spoken to anyone, especially the media or anyone that might be connected to the media. I think that's a lot to ask. But that's incident number 2, which didn't make things look rosy with John Farrell, unfortunately. Any manager in the major leagues is going to be scrutinized. I think Dave Dombrowski said it well. It's not just in Boston. There are several other cities that is the case. I'm sure he's, obviously means New York. Los Angeles, I'm not so sure. I mean, I think the press is there, the people are there, just that the fans, I don't think are as boisterous or as committed, let's say, as those Red Sox fans are. But there are other cities. But the point is, it's not an easy place, obviously. And when I've seen John Farrell at press conferences, he's always handled it very, very well. Maybe a little too well. Everything's very, very well thought out and very, I don't say monotone, but very succinct. I know we're not looking for a comedian, but maybe that part of his personality, maybe people got tired of it. I don't know. But the situations that I mentioned just didn't look good. And I mean, if they'd beaten Houston, could you overlook those things? Maybe, until something like that or something like those two situations happens again. and something would happen next year. I don't think that David Price showed the utmost respect obviously for Dennis Eckersley or for his manager or his teammates, the way he acted. And I guess that's the kind of guy he might be sometimes. And that type of an individual, may take liberties. And I think he did take one in that point. And whether he realized it or not, but him doing that didn't make John Farrell look great. And now John Farrell had to answer all these questions, and now John Farrell's being scrutinized. And it didn't come out so well. And don't forget, if you go back to when Dave Dombrowski was hired, John Farrell was going through cancer treatment. So, the typical president of baseball ops or general manager that's hired in an organization, 9 times out of 10 brings his own manager in, usually sooner than later. And I think to a point, Dave Dombrowski's hands were tied. He knew what John Farrell's reputation was. And, so therefore, he stuck with him and actually renewed him and said, after the first season that right away that John Farrell will be back. That was the end of last year, and the whole coaching staff will be back. And that was a credit to John Farrell. I think that Dave Dombrowski was endorsing him essentially, because Dave Dombrowski could have said, we got swept and it's time to go in my direction. That's what he could have said. He could have said another direction. As I said, that was the year ago. But he could have said, I'm going in another direction, meaning my direction. And again, he didn't do that. But I think Dombrowski must have come to the conclusion that given what happened, given some situations, given maybe some things he didn't like, that it was time that they go in his direction. But I do believe, and he did say that he got a lot of input from other folks on his baseball staff, so it wasn't just a decision that he made in a vacuum, although ultimately he did make that decision and talked to John Henry today and indicated what he was going to do. So now we begin anew. I just wonder if they've reached out to any of the coaches to say that we want you back no matter who the manager is. Although, again, Dave Dombrowski did say the manager usually is given the latitude to hire his own coaching staff. But I would be very surprised if they didn't ask Chili Davis to stay on, although depending on who the next manager is, maybe the next manager would bring in his own hitting coach, and that's to be anticipated. There are precedents where an organization might say, you can bring in your own coaches, but we're keeping this guy. And I think Chili Davis is one. I think Brian Butterfield is another that are more possibly organization-type people, especially Brian Butterfield. Carl Willis, I don't think so. Amaro, at the first base coach, formerly the GM of the Philadelphia Phillies, I don't think so. So they may have the entire brand new coaching staff as well. Of course, us fans don't really care who's coaching. We care about results, we care about wins, and we care that the manager makes good decisions, and we all know what a good decision is and what a good decision is not, don't we? So I guess we're probably not as concerned with that. For a lot of names thrown around for the next manager of the Boston Red Sox, Alex Cora being one, and I think my feeling is David Ortiz is lobbying hard for him. Gabe Kapler, I'm not a fan of him being the next Red Sox manager. Dave Dombrowski did say it's unlikely anyone within the organization would be considered. He's looking for someone that has at least some major league coaching experience, not necessarily managerial experience, but coaching experience. That would seem to rule out Jason Varitek, although you never know. Sandy Alomar Jr., I've heard his name mentioned before. I'm not sure. Quite honestly, I don't really know if he would make a good candidate or not. Gary DiSarcina, the current bench coach, I mean, he's been in the organization off and on, so I guess he's a possibility. I don't view any of the managers that have retired recently or in the past 5 years. Jim Leland, no. I just don't see it. I think Alex Cora would be a good choice. He's got a ring with the Red Sox. He knows the organization, or at least he knows what it's like to play in Boston. Mike Lowell, I don't know. I'd love to find someone like Dave Robert, who's obviously done a great job with the Dodgers in his first year. I don't know who could have foreseen that, but apparently the Dodgers knew something. So I think it would be nice to find someone like that, a first-time manager. Joe Girardi, if he would become available, I think whatever anybody wants to pay him, just multiply it by 10 and get him in there. But I don't see him leaving New York, and but I do think he's probably the second best manager in baseball, next to Terry Francona. I know no one that's listening to this, no Red Sox fan that's listening to this has any love with the Yankees or anyone associated with the Yankees, but I can tell you that being down here in Connecticut, I work among some Yankees. I work like we're good Red Sox fans, they're good Yankee fans. So not all of them, but they all feel the same way about Girardi for the most part. They're not calling him Grady Girardi for the choice he made not to challenge the play a couple nights ago that led to, or supposedly led to, a lease on life for the Indians and the win. But I'll absolutely jump at the chance to grab Joe Girardi if he was available, but that's not going to happen. So we obviously welcome your comments on yourbostonsports.com, on Facebook, on Twitter. If you want to become a contributor, either Facebook Live or just posting pictures, if you go see the Patriots, if you go see the Celtics, if you go see the Bruins, and you want to contribute to yourbostonsports.com, just drop us a note. We'd love to have you contribute in any way that you want. Go live. Tell us what you think. Tell all of Red Sox Nation, all of Boston sports fans, what you think. All comments are welcome. Please participate. Get involved. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Rob Goodwin of yourbostonsports.com with, coverage of the John Farrell firing and what's next for the Boston Red Sox. And look forward to, Red Sox winter weekend at Foxwoods coming up, I guess, in January. Seems like it's a long way off, and when the weather gets colder, it's going to seem like it's much farther away from 70 to 80 degrees, but it's always a good time. So I guess that's the next Red Sox event that I look forward to. Again, thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great night.